indulge me, I think before talking about For Small Creatures Such as We, it's worth talking about science fiction as a genre. I've been playing a lot of Starforged recently. If you're not aware, it's another solo space opera game where you captain your ship and fly around the galaxy having space adventures. I love it, but it has a slight darkness about it. Maybe that's inherited from its dark fantasy predecessor, Ironsworn, but partly it's the baggage of serious and gritty modern space operas like the Culture series or The Expanse. This isn't a criticism. Modern space opera just has a lot of unlikable characters in space being mean to each other, and sometimes I wish they could just be nice to each other for a change. Well, Becky Chambers had the same thought with her Wayfarers series, a loosely connected series of space stories about people learning to work together, not in spite of their different cultures and backgrounds, but being enhanced by them. For me personally, the second book in that series, A Close and Common Orbit, is one of the most beautiful things I have ever read. Now, Anna Blackwell's For Small Creatures Such as We, that we're looking at today, aims to capture that same warm feeling, borrowing some of the same ideas and themes as in the first novel of the Wayfarer series, The Long Way to a Small, Angry Planet. It focuses on a spaceship crew of varied backgrounds and species. It focuses on their relationships and their journeys and the experiences they share together. It even has a similar title style, borrowing a line from Carl Sagan's Contact. She had studied the universe all her life, but had overlooked its clearest message. For small creatures such as we, the vastness is bearable only through love. The physical book comes as a tidy little paperback that would look right at home next to a Becky Chambers novel on your bookshelf. Inside, the rules are simply laid out in the first half, focusing on ease of reading. The second half gets a bit more adventurous with its layout, especially the planets section, which plays with some diegetic features to make it feel like the book is written in universe. Similar to those little notes you get from Xanathar or Tasha in Dungeons & Dragons books. A neat little feature I like is these scribbles in an alien language you can find here and there. A little puzzle to work on, if you're so inclined. At its simplest, For Small Creatures Such as We is a card-drawing, solo journaling game. The book doesn't state the core mechanic exactly like this, but here's how I'd describe it. For every day that passes, roll a d6 to see if an event happens. If so, draw a regular playing card and consult the table to get a prompt. Resolve that event, and any other business you might have, then write a little journal entry about what happened. That's at its simplest, though. For Small Creatures Such as We is so much more complex than other card-drawing games I've played, and a good deal denser than Anna Blackwell's other games, like Apothecaria. You'll find rules for generating missions, from diplomacy to heists, rules for space combat, and separate rules for ground combat, rules for pickpocketing and scamming, rules for mining and resource gathering, rules for travelling, stats and slots for ship systems, stats and abilities for crewmates, unique rules for different planets, and so on. There's a lot here. So the game starts with creating your ship's captain. I love the little hex grid here, where you start in the centre and move outward to generate a childhood, an adolescence, and an adulthood for your captain. You can also roll for it if you prefer. Personally, I rolled for a childhood and then let my imagination take over. I rolled an orphan who had been taken and used as a test subject and then escaped as a deserter. A quick side note here, picking deserter is not for the faint-hearted. I had to get quite acquainted with the rules for crime and heat. As an outlaw, you're constantly being chased by bounty hunters. In fact, the very first card I drew told me a bounty hunter immediately showed up to arrest me, which turned my little crime mission into an explosive first scene. Next, you pick your skills. I chose hiding to help lay low as an outlaw, and then piloting and combat. With your captain ready, you generate a crew by drawing cards for their features and letting those features inspire you. For my first crewmate, I drew an optimistic, non-verbal alien who sheds her fur every 30 days. I thought she would make a fun tinkerer, and gave her the engineer skill and an obsession with explosives. Keep doing that until you have a fun crew, then move on to ship design. You have a number of slots for ship systems, and money to spend on them. I chose a kitchen for my chef, a lab for my engineer, and a smuggler's hold, since something told me I would be doing some crimes. Once that's done, your background gives you a starting mission, and you pick a hex on this map to start. You can start right in the action on a planet, or out in space on your travels. The main gameplay loop is actually quite involved and took a little getting used to. Like I said, it's nowhere near as simple as it sounds. There's rules for everything, and every cycle there's a lot that changes and a lot to keep track of. As you fly through space, you lose fuel and food of the specific type that each crew member eats. You need to keep track of the crew's shore leave and happiness level for every day you spend in space. The ship's systems all have their own health to keep track of, as well as the overall hull integrity. You need to track and resolve any ongoing events or missions. So, for example, my crew accidentally set their nav computer to a different language and couldn't change it back for 13 days. I decided for those 13 days I would roll to see which hex they ended up in to represent them struggling to navigate with an ancient sextant. And you need to remember any special rules for your crew that might trigger. On planet, I needed to track my heat level every day because as an outlaw it goes up when I spend a day on a planet, or if I defeat a bounty hunter. Then in space it goes down if I fly into the orange or red hexes, which are more lawless areas of space. It plays a little like a flowchart, or multiple parallel flowcharts leading you through the events of the day, so you can write your journal entry at the end of it. But you're rewarded with cute little stories about your crew cooperating and learning to work together. So, although the game is meant to be played solo, I was very happy to see a 2-page spread on co-op play. That's a really nice addition to have. There's also some basic rules for generating your own events, if you see some of the same ones cropping up. Anna Blackwell has 3 expansions in the works. A guide to fauna, which is rules for creating real-feeling alien life forms. War for combat-focused events. And Love and Lust, presumably for BioWare fans who just need to hold hands with their party members. A little aside here, the Love and Lust digital release actually came out a couple of days before I recorded this, just in time for Valentine's Day. I haven't had a chance to look it over yet, but as well as focusing on relationships, it has new planets, a new map, and new character options. I thought about delaying this video while I tried out Love and Lust, but I prefer my physical books, so I'll wait until the physical release. Now, there isn't a thriving homebrew community that I'm aware of yet, but it's easy to see how homebrewers can expand the setting with more planets, more maps, more ship systems. So watch this space, I guess. For Small Creatures Such as We is about relationships. So it's a bit surprising that there aren't any rules for building relationships with and between your crew in the core book. it kind of leaves that up to you, which, with all the creative prompts, is easy to accomplish. I guess I would have liked to see some relationship trackers, like in Starforged, or perhaps crewmates' personal quests, or something like that. And it's not the game's fault that I keep forgetting to reduce my food supply or increase my heat level, but a quick reference sheet or a flowchart might have helped jog my memory. For Small Creatures Such as We is a lovely game that straddles the line between cosy card drawing and swashbuckling space adventure. Does it accomplish what it sets out to achieve? Yes, with one small caveat. In my game, the stories I generated were a bit more Firefly than Wayfarer, a little more action and high conflict than cozy and low stakes, but that's not a bad thing. And that might just be down to the way that I interpreted the rules or the way that I interpreted the events that I drew. I had an absolute blast with this game, and the adventures of my outlaw captain and their crew will continue, just as soon as they can figure out how to change their nav computer's language settings back. Thank you ever so much for watching. This is the first of what I hope will be a regular series, looking at small and indie role-playing games. I've called this a review, which it is, but really the goal here is not to be overcritical. For me, it's a little essay about the joy of owning a rulebook, especially a physical one. There are so many great games out there made by people who are passionate about them, games that don't get the attention they deserve, and it's not always easy to get a feel for a game before buying. That cozy intention is why I picked a cozy-ish game to review first. As for what to expect in this series, as well as focusing on indie games, I'll mainly be looking at games with a solo or GM-less mode, partly because it's just simpler to try out a game on my own, but also because I'm a big fan of solo games, and it's becoming increasingly common to include solo options in rulebooks, which is great to see. So if that sounds interesting or useful, please do subscribe, and why not suggest a game for me to look at? Until next time, happy adventures.